Let's begin with the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax which appear on your screen. We'll remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. Our first question is from Puebla, Mexico. Go ahead, please. Puebla.
Bueno, hablo de la normal rural Carmen Cerdán.
I'm calling from a school in Puebla, in a city in Puebla. What we want to ask is, how can a leader really guide actions without really interfering with emotions or a dynamic within the work group?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad it's coming from a school because I think schools have a little more complexity in terms of their leadership structure. And what I mean by that is that traditionally schools have a hierarchy of a principal or a dean in a university setting, and they have to really set a vision and values and empower teachers to succeed in the classroom. And so to the heart of your question, I think the way leaders guide so that results can be achieved is it's very important for leaders to establish a vision, to articulate the values of the organization, to be very clear on what the mission of the organization is, and then step back and allow the employees, in your case perhaps the teachers, the faculty, to teach and to learn. But also it's very important for every organization to establish a handful of metrics, maybe 4 or 5 metrics that you can use as the leader to track progress and to measure improvement. And then of course correct the course as you need to do that in order to move the organization forward.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And for the next question, we go to Sinaloa, Mexico. Go ahead, please.
Muy buenos días.
What is the importance of training and development of personnel to then have leaders that can coordinate ideas and talents within an educational environment? Thank you very much.
Well, I think in terms of training, an organization has to continuously be learning. Otherwise, managers stagnate, people stagnate, they don't grow. And as I mentioned, Fred's very first question in the opening of this program, that I think one of the reasons that decision-making has become so important today is that progressive organizations become industry leaders and schools become best in class as a result of investing in their people, growing managers to leaders, to become leaders. And when you do that, what you do is you create a higher level of sophistication, a stronger organization in virtue of lessons learned over the years by leaders, and they can make better decisions. And I think in today's environment, whether it's in education, government, or the private sector, that the marginal difference between a good organization and a great organization is the ability of leaders to make good decisions the first time. And I think that's why it's so important to train your people in the ways of excellence and ethics, and to be sensitive to the needs of the people in your organization.
Thank you very much. We're having excellent questions today, and for the next one, we go to Sabinas, Mexico. Go ahead, please.
Buenos días.
My question is the following. The concept that you said about the heart of a leader in terms of decision-making, does this have to do with all the values in this leader's workplace and also in his social environment, his or her social environment?
Well, again, an excellent question, and thank you for that. I think we are all byproducts of how we are raised. And as I mentioned, I think people become leaders. And they become leaders at different levels of competence. They become leaders based on their upbringing, and their upbringing is both a byproduct of their home environment and the workplace, and certainly school. And I think a leader is nothing more than an individual who is able to express and live the values and beliefs that he or she has learned in their lifetime. And I think that's why, as we get a little grayer around the temples, maybe we should be smarter because we've learned more. So there's no doubt in my mind that the concept of heart in a leader should be nurtured and developed as we get older and hopefully wiser, because we're able to find ways in which we can live the values that we've learned, and we can apply those values in the workplace and certainly in our social settings. And let me just add this very quickly. I think part of the conflict that we have in the world, whether it's war or terrorism, is this clash of values and not being in harmony with people around the world to understand right values from wrong values.
Thank you very much. Excellent interaction. And now we go to Ecuador for our next question. Go ahead, please.
Buenos días.
Good morning. How can we make a correct decision within an organization without confronting a barrier? That is, if the leaders are based or make their decisions based on their own interests and not, taking into account the group's well-being. Thank you very much.
Well, these are excellent questions, and now we're getting into some very difficult turf, because what you have to look at organizationally, and this would be my recommendation for your guideline for making decisions. I think you need to look at the vision of the organization. Who is it that we are trying to be as an organization? Secondly, what are the values that we subscribe to as an organization? And then you have to make decisions based on the vision and values of that organization. And oftentimes, they're going to be dictated by the leader, who the leader is and what he or she stands for. And secondly, what do your stakeholders want? Customers, students, taxpayers. Everybody has a different want or need in your stakeholder base. Given that, leaders need to make decisions based on what will honor the vision and the values of the organization. So it's very difficult oftentimes for the leader to go against the grain. That is what most people want, and instead go with what's in the best interest and the long-term interest of the organization. And hopefully, a good leader always keeps that vision in front of him or her and is true to that vision and therefore stays the course.
Very good. We just have time for one more quick question and answer. This one from Hidalgo, Mexico. Go ahead, please.
Congratulations for this video conference. What would be the best way to really involve personnel in this decision-making process? And what would be the role then in terms of the specific decision-making team in taking into account the client's needs?
Well, this is a good question to end on because I think a best-in-class organization, a world-class organization, values its people. And if you want to grow your people and nurture them, it's smart to involve them in any decision-making process. And as you do that, it strengthens their ability and obviously gives them a very meaningful role in the decision-making process to support what their customers need and to support whatever group they're advocating. Keep in mind, within your organization, you have a number of interest groups that your employees represent. For example, human resources represents the interest of the employees of the organization. Sales and marketing oftentimes represents the interest of the customers. So leaders need to merge those different interests together, and the best way to do that is by involving them in the decision-making process.
Well, thank you for your excellent questions. Let's now move to the second module of our program.